It's an ugly one. It's a brutal one. It's a tough one. However you want to describe it, it is a loss for the Philadelphia Eagles as they fall in overtime out in Los Angeles to the Chargers 22-19. They fall to 8-5 on the season. And we're going to break it down here on this episode of Eagles Latest. Thanks so much for tuning in. That was a tough one if you stayed up last night to watch it in its entirety. There wasn't a whole lot to cheer for from the offense again, even though reports swirled around this week that Nick Sirianni spent more time with the offensive coaching staff to try and right the ship. They implemented some new running concepts, which I think for the most part worked. Saquon Barkley was averaging almost 5.5 yards a carry in that first half. He ripped off that 50-plus yard touchdown run in the second half off of a bit of a wrinkle formation of the tush push. And after that, the Chargers kind of bottled him up and was able to neutralize the offensive line for the Eagles. But you look at this game, they really didn't deserve to win. The way it started, the way the offense played, Jalen Hurts played arguably his worst game of his career. We're going to talk about Hurts in a little bit. A.J. Brown, yeah, he had a good game, but a handful of key drops, pivotal drops that could have changed the complexion of this game. The defense did what it needed to do for the most part. It held Justin Herbert and the offense to just that one touchdown on the opening drive, and then it was a field goal fest afterwards. And I just don't think this is fixable. We talked about it last week a little bit. There's just way too many problems for this team. It's the coaching, it's the quarterback play, it's the attention to detail. They had back-breaking penalties again. The holding on Mailata on that touchdown to A.J. Brown, which would have tied it up at that point, was a little ticky-tacky, but nonetheless, it was still enough to get a ref to throw a flag. They had the field goal penalty on Moro Ojomo. It didn't turn into 7, but it elongated a defensive drive for the defense. They had to quickly come back out and play another drive in succession. It just continues to snowball, and Nick Sirianni said post-game that loss stings. And it does, because you still had a chance to win this game, and you just couldn't get it done. Jalen Hurts throws a pass that if you watch the film, you could kind of see why he went to Jahan Dotson, but he's running away from Dotson. And Hart made a great play, the cornerback for the Chargers. He's got one of the biggest wingspans in the NFL, and he used it to his advantage to tip the ball up. And then, the rest is history. And the Eagles are now 8-5, still leading in the NFC East, but it certainly doesn't feel good, to say the least. So it's a bit confusing how this team was even in this game. Some notes I took throughout the ball game. Obviously, Landon Dickerson missing pretty much 2 full quarters, or 1 full quarter, I should say. He left the game in the second, late, went into the locker room, didn't return till near the end of the third quarter and gutted it out. I mean, props to him. He had a calf injury. I would go on a hunch that he was barely 75%. I mean, this guy has been dealing with a lot, just like this offensive line has been. Hurts just was not good tonight. We're going to talk about him in a moment. We mentioned the Mailata holding on the A.J. Brown touchdown. And that drive for the touchdown just can't happen. You go a rush play for Barkley, no yards, the holding, and then incomplete pass. Jake Elliott missed another field goal. That's his 5th missed field goal in the last 7 games. The clock management on that final offensive possession for the Eagles before the 2-minute warning was a little head-scratching. I didn't mind the deep shot to A.J. Brown. They like to go for those dagger shots. Some might not agree with it. You say, hey, just run the clock out. But I didn't agree with the third down screenplay where essentially just run the ball at that point. Because that's what that screen pass is essentially. It's just a long version of a run, but you run the risk of the ball being dropped, and that's exactly what happened, and it allowed the Chargers to keep a timeout in their back pocket. So to me, that made no sense. I thought that was a poor decision by Nick Sirianni. And now, it cost them because it gave the Chargers just enough time to go down the field and kick a game-tying field goal to force overtime. So there is a lot to digest here in this one. One of the biggest things, though, is Jalen Hurts is not good right now. And I don't know what he does to fix it. 5 turnovers in this game, arguably the worst game of his career. He had the 2 turnovers on the one play. He threw the interception and then recovered the fumble. And instead of falling down on it, he, for some reason, decided, I should scoop this up and try and make something happen. And that gets jarred from him. And he becomes the first player since like 1975 to have 2 turnovers on one play. And that was just kind of emblematic, I should say, of the game. And again, despite that, Jalen Hurts found ways to make some throws. He was able to connect with A.J. Brown on some big passes. That 3rd and 16 on their final drive in overtime to Devontae Smith was almost unbelievable how good of a throw that was. You really weren't expecting that from Jalen Hurts the way he was playing last night. But I don't know what is going on with Hurts. He's not seeing the field well. He's not trusting himself. He's not trusting the play calls. There is something that is clearly not going on right now, and it's hindering this team. He has 7 giveaways in his last 2 games. He had 7 total in his previous 26 games played. I mean, this is a guy who takes pride in protecting the football and quote-unquote doing whatever he can to win the games. But now he's being reckless. He's trying to force throws. That one pass to A.J. Brown was atrocious. And then, 2 of those picks were tipped balls. The one, A.J. Brown should have had it. Yes, the throw was high. It hit your top wide receiver in the hands. A.J. Brown, I would think, would say post-game, hey, that's a ball I need to get. But still, it doesn't dissolve the fact that Jalen Hurts is struggling mightily this year. He is not playing to the Super Bowl MVP caliber that we saw to close out the 2024 season 11 months ago, 10 months ago. And that is the biggest key right now for the Eagles because the running game, they had success tonight. Barkley had just his second 100-plus yard rushing game of the season, but it's not consistent. And when you have a quarterback that's not consistent and now turn the ball over behind a shoddy offensive line, it just keeps compounding. And that's exactly what we saw last night. And I'm almost chuckling here because I'm just thinking that somehow they still had a freaking chance to win that game, which is it's just crazy to me. And now, the defense played phenomenal. We're going to talk about the defense in tomorrow's episode. But most teams aren't even sniffing a comeback when your quarterback gives it up 5 times. Not at all. And the Eagles had a chance. So I think that's why Nick Sirianni said that this one stings, because they know that they had a chance. Now the Chargers didn't play their best game by any means. Justin Herbert became a human pinata at one point. He was sacked a career high 7 times behind that terrible offensive line. But there's going to be some serious conversations being had in the Philadelphia area. People are already calling for Tanner McKee. I don't think you bench Jalen Hurts. I think you have to go down with Hurts here this season. If this ship is going to sink, I think you just have to ride it out with Jalen and then reassess next year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to cut him, but maybe you look at this draft differently, or maybe the year after to see the quarterback class. Obviously, Hurts has a big contract, but right now there is a serious regression with Jalen Hurts. And everybody always likes to argue who's a top 5 quarterback in the league, and a lot of people would say Jalen Hurts isn't, and some people will. Well, tonight he had a chance to prove he is a top 5 quarterback in the league, and he just didn't rise to the occasion. And the 5 turnovers was absolutely brutal. Again, forcing the defense on the field more than it had to be. And the Eagles' offense, again, just still didn't look great. You look at the numbers. Yes, Barkley had over 100 yards rushing. Hurts finished with 240 yards, but again, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions. A.J. Brown with a third straight 100-yard receiving game. He did it on just 6 catches. Could have had a touchdown. But this offense still is broken. Nick Sirianni apparently spent more time with the offensive side of the football this week to try and rectify the issues. They continue to say that they're going to analyze everything and evaluate everything. Well, it's week 14. What are you evaluating at this point? You are who you are, and right now you are a team that is desperately relying on the defense to win you games and keep teams under 17 points because you're barely scoring 17 a game since the bye week. So, it's pretty tough to talk about right now. 3 straight losses. I think that this game proved to a lot of people that they probably aren't winning a Super Bowl this year. Now, again, things can change. They somehow catch fire out of nowhere, but I was waiting for this game to see and hold my judgment on that, and I just don't think it's happening at this point in time. I think they just cannot figure it out. The coaching staff can't figure out the offensive problems. The players can't figure it out, and it's just become a mess. Moving on, A.J. Brown, again, we mentioned, nice game, 100 yards on 6 catches. He's getting his. But again, in those 3 games that he has 100 yards plus in succession, they have now lost 3 in a row. So is it a coincidence? Is it because Jalen Hurts is forcing the ball to A.J. Brown and missing other and better reads and options on pass plays? Not entirely sure, but it certainly will be brought up all week. And especially the drops from A.J. Brown. I think that's what's going to frustrate a lot of fans calling into the radio stations, talking with friends about the game, is that A.J. Brown has been complaining, not happy with his target share for most of the season. And he got a bunch of targets again last night, and he had some big drops. And some of them, kind of look like maybe business decisions. Like, hey, I know I'm going to get a big hit here. I don't want to take it. That interception most notably stands out where he kind of leaped up, it hit his hands, and it tipped into the secondary of the Chargers. I mean, that's a catch you have to make as a wide receiver, and especially one that A.J. Brown can make and would make. But yeah, I just thought that he had some big drops that also were as important as Jalen Hurts' turnovers. The first play of the game for them offensively, Jalen Hurts throws a pretty good deep ball down the sideline, and Brown just couldn't haul it in. The touchdown pass, or would-be touchdown pass on that final drive in the fourth quarter for them, that might have been one of the best throws that Jalen Hurts had all night, and perhaps A.J. Brown since they've been together, and A.J. Brown couldn't haul it in. Now, yeah, he made some big-time catches to get them into position on that final drive. He caught a couple of slant routes, some out routes, made some guys miss. He's pumping his chest, and he's trying to get everybody pumped up. Obviously, Saquon Barkley kind of calling out the team's lack of energy on the sidelines during these games. But if you're going to talk your talk, you got to back it up, and there are some big-time drops there that I think A.J. Brown will get scrutinized for. And I think for the most part, it's deserved because this is a top wide receiver in a big-time spot to try and help stop this bleeding, and he also couldn't deliver. So Jalen Hurts couldn't deliver. A.J. Brown couldn't deliver. The offensive line struggled at times. The coaching staff struggled. So everybody that you needed to help you pick yourself up from the ground and win you a game on the road across the country, they all just kind of failed in this one. And I think that's telling, and that's kind of the storyline of this season here in 2025. Wrapping things up, as we mentioned, the problems, they're just all over. The defense, I thought, looked pretty good. Again, this Chargers offensive line is atrocious, But again, with no Jalen Carter, they were able to pressure Justin Herbert, I think, at least at a 70% rate, which is astronomically high. They were able to sack him 7 times. They could have probably had double-digit sacks, but Herbert did a great job maneuvering out of some would-be sacks. But the defense really was not the problem in this game last night. It was the offense. And again, it just continues to chug along each week. They can't figure out the solutions. Now, I mentioned earlier, I kind of liked what they did with some of the running games, the concepts. Saquon Barkley alluded that he was pretty excited about the game plan coming into this one. But again, the passing game is just not there. And I don't think it will be. It won't be because Jalen Hurts is struggling, and now he's struggling to protect the football. And that's the problem. They were able to squeak by and win games because they weren't losing the turnover battle. But tonight they lost it badly. He finished with 240 yards, a QBR of 27.3, and he finished 21 of 40. So he finished just a little over 50% completion rate, which is not great. So we'll see what happens. I just don't think at this point they're going to make any crazy changes. Maybe they take the play calling away from Kevin Patullo. Maybe they bring somebody in last second. Obviously, Frank Reich is hanging around after being canned by Stanford. I don't know what they do. Nick Sirianni apparently tried to step in this week, and the offense didn't look much better at all. So they have to figure it out. They have the Las Vegas Raiders coming into town this weekend. We'll obviously preview that game later on this week, but it was a tough one to watch last night as the Eagles fall in overtime, 22-19, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board yet again, and you wonder if some frustration and some white flag waving is going to start for the Eagles like they did in 2023. And I think that will be a huge disappointment for this team, that you essentially give up twice in 3 seasons. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I know a lot of fans, they're like, oh, Super Bowl or bust this year. It is really, really hard to repeat as Super Bowl champs. That's why there's not that many teams that have done it in the history of this sport. Getting bounced out in the first playoff game seems more likely. Now, if they have a home game, I think they'll be able to squeak by depending on who they draw in that matchup. But if this team quits after losing 3 in a row now, there's way bigger issues inside that locker room than we thought there were. And, maybe Nick Sirianni's seat gets extremely hot in the offseason because Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, I don't think will stomach another collapse like they had in 2023. So we'll see what happens. We'll break down the game a bit more tomorrow. We'll talk about the defense and some of their top performers on that side of the football. But overall, a tough loss. The Eagles' offense, again, just looks completely lost for the most part, and I don't think they are going to fix it. So with that said, that will put a bow on this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in to Eagles Latest on FanArch. As always, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel as we continue to break down this Eagles season as we trudge along here as the Birds are now 8-5 on the season.